Hello everyone. This is Rachel with Things We Wear, and today I'm going to do a video about how to create a lovely technical sketch for those of you out there who are interested in pattern making or technical design or even designing. I think this is an important skill to talk about, and it's kind of a skill you can use in a lot of instances. But now that I've been doing this a while, I do find that it's kind of a way of thinking about how you illustrate that can be used in a lot of different circumstances. So when we talk about illustration, we need to figure out what our goal is. So let's first open a document and then I will talk you through it. So we're going to go to New File in Illustrator. I always use Illustrator. I know some people who use Photoshop. Illustrator is just a much cleaner program to use. I have not found anything that I like better. So I highly recommend getting Adobe Illustrator. And now that it's on the cloud, I think it's fairly accessible for most people. When I first started, you had to spend like $1,000 to buy a license. And now you might end up spending more in the long run, but it is a smaller entry fee. You can get one app for like $20 a month, or if you buy the whole package, I think it's currently about $50 a month for basically everything, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to do New File, and I actually like to do print. Let's see here. I like to do like a regular letter. So let's see here. Mobile print. Okay, so I'm going to do a letter size because when you are doing technical sketches, again, you always want to be thinking about what the purpose of what you're doing is. In this case, a lot of technical sketches are going to be printed out either in a tech pack form, or if you're sending it to a factory, maybe they will print it out and put it near where the garment is being sewn. So having it be formatted for an 8.5 by 11 is sort of a good place to start. At least you know the resolution is going to be good for that size. And I usually do portrait mode here rather than landscape because typically, well, it depends on your system, PLM, if you use Excel, whatever it is, but I find that portrait is fine. So I'm going to just go ahead and create that. Okay, so here we go. And just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to do Workspace. Sometimes I do Essentials Classic just because that's what I learned on, and that's what this one is here. So they kind of like, if you're missing windows or something, sometimes that helps me find the windows again. You're like, hey, where's my swatches or my stroke? There's a lot of options here. All right, so here's your blank page. For those of you who are not used to doing this kind of thing, if you're interested in becoming a technical designer or going into fashion, I'll kind of give you some background. So a technical sketch is a sketch that's going to be of a flat garment. So we're not going to illustrate a garment that's on a body. A designer might draw a sketch that's more artistic, meaning that it might show the way the fabric drapes. There might be style lines in there, something to kind of make it look a little bit more something for the merchandising team to understand the style and communicate kind of like what it's for. For us as technical designers, we don't want any extra lines that don't communicate a physical property of the garment. Okay, so the whole point of any line that you draw in a technical sketch is to indicate either a seam line or where the fabric is folding, something like that. Everything should have a purpose, and it is not meant to be an artistic interpretation. It is also should be flat. So it's going to be how, let's say, a factory will see it if they are sewing it or inspecting it in a QC level. So you want to make sure that the garment is illustrated as it would look on a table. So all that being said, usually I start by saying what this is that I'm communicating. So let's say it is a, what are we going to illustrate today? Maybe a pant or maybe a top. Let's start with a t-shirt, and then maybe I'll do more of these videos and kind of illustrate different ways to do things. So t-shirt, and this is called t-shirt, and this is going to be my Rachel, and the date today is 3/19/22. Okay, so sometimes it depends on your format. I always like to include a date, the title, and my name and who edited it. And this way I just kind of have record. sometimes you will find that things go back and forth. So let's say you create this document and then you have changes to the garment and you do something else to the document. Rather than change the actual document, I just make new copies of it and date it. And then that way, if you end up going back to the original construction or you ended up liking some aspect of an original sketch, you can always come back to this one right here. So, I might put this in the middle and just center that. If you're not used to using Adobe Illustrator, I do think it's a fairly simple program to use, but it can be a little overwhelming if you're first starting out. There's a few tools that I use for basically everything. Number one is this black arrow. So this is the basic selection tool, and you can access it by pressing the V on your keyboard, and then you'll be able to access it. It can also resize here, although it won't resize the actual text, it'll just resize the square that the text lives within. And if you want to reset the size, you can do that here. If this is selected, then I can make it larger, change it to be a different font type here. So lots of options there. Okay, so now in making a t-shirt, some people like to use croquis. A croquis is like sort of a silhouette of a body that gives you some sense of scale when you're drawing an image. I am not a super fan of this, and let me show you what a croquis is. Okay, so I have this, here we go, croquis. I don't know how to spell that, hold on. There we go, croquis, perfect. Okay, so it's basically like a little blank person here. And a lot of people like to use croquis. Let me spell that correctly, sorry. I didn't finish that, just so you know, it's in your head in the correct way, croquis. So if you wanted to use a croquis, and it's perfectly valid to do, you can, just search for an image and it'll give you sort of a model to draw onto. This is probably more helpful if you're doing more stylized kind of design sketches, or you're doing line sketches, which still are supposed to implicate folds or fabric, etc. Then I would definitely use a croquis in that case. So you can see how you have a figure here, and then it helps inform how the fabric is draping. For our purposes, I don't really think that it's necessary. But if you need something for scale, t-shirt images. So one thing that you could do, which is totally valid, and I do this sometimes, is here's something. I'm going to just use my scissors and snip this, and it just gives me like a nice reference. I'm going to Control-C that, paste it there, and then you see up here opacity, turn it down. That way I can kind of see a little better. And then I'm going to zoom in. So I zoom in by pressing Control plus. Okay, and you can zoom out by Control minus. It's a nice little trick. And then I'm going to do something. I'm going to lock this. So that is Control 2. But you can also go Object, Lock, Selection. So it would just be whatever you had a box around at the time would be locked. All right, so now this is there. I'm going to go ahead and start drawing. So I'm going to use my pen tool. Pen tool is like my favorite tool in Illustrator. You can do like everything with it. And this is what I do most of my sketches with. So first I'm going to make sure that it's correct here. So I'm going to make it so the pen tool has a stroke but not a fill. I don't usually fill my sketches unless I have a reason to. And because I don't need to copy this exactly, this is just kind of to give me so I'm not freehanding a t-shirt. So you can hold Shift, it'll make your line go straight. And then, well, your line will be straight, but I meant perfectly horizontal. Just gonna trace it here. Now, if I hold when I reach a point, then this cool little thingamabobber will appear, and you can curve it ever so slightly. And then if you go back and click, See that little triangle, the little V that shows up? That turns it into a non-smoothing or non-curve point from there on out. So if I click that, I can draw a straight line there. Now, if I didn't click that, this would be a curved line. So I'm going to go ahead, click that V, and we go to the sleeve cap there. And then, let's see, how do I want to do this? Maybe I'll go to the banding. Looks like there's kind of like a rib banding there. If you hold down Shift as you pull this line, it'll make it perfectly symmetrical, which is nice. Sometimes I even just draw half and then I create a symmetric version of it so that I don't have to bother with it not being symmetrical, because you do want, unless there's a reason that it is asymmetrical, like the style is an asymmetrical style, you want this to be pretty precise because you don't want to cause any confusion for a factory. And, you know, no matter what language you speak or the people you work with speak, communication is the source of, if there's an issue, like, okay, I'm going to make up a number here, but 75% of the time at least, it's a communication problem. So whatever you can do to make sure that you are doing your communication in a really clear way, don't include any extra information, include any information that is pertinent. So you want to make sure that there's not duplicate information, and at the same time you want to make sure that you don't leave anything out. So that's why it's really important that things be not stylized, that things be really clear and simple, and just do what you need them to do and no more. Okay, so we're not going to make like fine art here. Okay, so when you click that little circle, it closes the shape. So now if I did want to fill the shape, let's say I wanted to make it yellow for whatever reason, and I could do that by using the eyedropper and selecting that. And then let's say I wanted just that to be yellow, and for some reason I want this part to be black outline, and where's my stroke? Let's see here. There it is. I'll make that a 3. Okay. Oh, and see right now, because I stole from the t-shirt, it lost opacity, so I'm going to turn that up, and I don't love that color yellow, so I'm going to change it. Let's see here, color guide. Oops. There we go. It's a little better. Okay, so now I'm going to start by doing the stitch line here. So actually, well, no, I should probably do the, see, this is why I don't fill mine. This is a great example. Okay, I wanted to see this seam line here, and when I filled it, I lost it. So I'm going to turn off that filling. All right, now I'm going to add the armhole seam. Whoops, I accidentally deleted that point, so you have to be a little bit careful. No. Not to delete anything. Nope. See, whenever it gets that plus, you're just adding a point. So you might just have to have it be ever so slightly off. There we go. And then when you're done with it, if you can't close it, just click Control and click anywhere, and that will get you out of there. And then you can click the white arrow and kind of bring it right there. There we go. Okay, let's do this side. So we're gonna, nope, not quite go there, not quite go there. There we go. Control, click, and then this is actually, the shortcut is A, so I just press A, and I'm on the white arrow, and the white arrow allows you to select individual points, whereas the black arrow would select the whole object, so it would select that whole black line, which you don't want in this case. Okay, so now we have our seam lines in. So now I'm going to add the stitch detail. For a t-shirt, if you're unfamiliar with how knit garments are made, typically because knit garments are usually left raw on the inside. They don't usually clean finish a knit garment. So for example, if you look at the bottom of your denim jeans, that's a woven garment, you'll see that there's a double fold with the denim. So it's folded once, fold it again, and then a single line of stitching holds it. With a knit, it's just folded once, and then there'll be 2 lines of stitching on the outside, and on the inside, there'll usually be like some sort of looping situation. Sometimes on a knit, you'll have the looping on the outside as well. But yeah, typically you'll see the industry numeric quality is called a number 406. If you look at the, I will find a link to that. There's a standard list of stitches. If you're working with overseas vendors or it's easier to communicate that way, you can use the term 406. You can also call it a double needle cover stitch, the cover referring to the inside of that stitch. Okay, so we're gonna go here to there. Make that a nice curve. Click. Okay, now I'm gonna make it a dotted line. Let's see here, I'm gonna go stroke. I'm gonna expand that, and I'm gonna click dash line. And I think I want it to be, it's kind of a big dash. Let's try 5 and 5. So you're controlling both the gap and the stitch point. I think that's fine. And then I'm gonna make this a 1, because we're actually gonna do 2 right next to each other. So Control C, Control V to paste, and then we're gonna put it right there. Okay, cool. So now that we've done that, I can just select both of those with my black arrow, press Control C, Control V, oops, there they are, and then Object, Transform, Reflect over the vertical line, okay? And now they're perfectly reflected, and I can just pull them over here. It looks like this side isn't quite symmetrical, so I'm just gonna rotate it slightly. There we go. Perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna do the same thing for down here. Good, okay. And I'm just gonna go ahead and copy and paste that. Cool. When you're doing this, you do want to think about if you know that your t-shirt has, let's say this looks like it might be like a 5/8 inch bend back, right? Or turn back hem. If you know that your hem is 1.5 inches, then you're gonna want to move these way up here. So it's important that you think about visually what that turn back is going to look like, because you want this image to be reflective of your garment. Oops. Okay, and if you press and hold the middle button of your mouse, you can kind of drag around. All right, so let's try this. So now I'm going to do this rib banding. Typically on a t-shirt, you're going to have a rib banding, and I know I'm still in dotted territory, but I will fix that in a moment. So I'm just going to go ahead, select that, press the I button for eyedropper, and there we go, that matches. And then I can smooth that right in there. Okay, and then I can draw the rest of it right here. Okay, sometimes this part takes a little bit finessing to make it not look wonky. We will get there, I promise. Okay, so, oh, and now we need a back ribbing. I'm sorry, back neck seam. That's here. Typically in a technical sketch, you would not show the label application, you just show construction details. So you can see there's like the faint outline of the label there. Unless the sketch is specifically to show that. You know, I think there's merit for having that there, but it kind of depends on the use of this sketch. And maybe there's some sketches that you show blank, and sometimes you do have to show how it's going to fully look. And then back here. you have a back neck tape. Often in t-shirts we have like a 1/4 inch or 3/8 kind of like self tape back there, and sometimes that is stitched down with a, usually it can be a variety of machine type. Okay, let's see here. There we go. So now I'm gonna turn this into a stitch line, because somehow they're gonna have to stitch that down. And I do like these guides, but sometimes it snaps a little bit and it's hard to make it quite fit. I'm gonna make that a little bit smaller. Okay, great, cool. All right, so give me 1 second here. Okay, so now I'm going to put some ribbing on the neckline. There are many ways to do this. Actually, let me see if I can figure out how to do this. So one way to do it would be, I think this would work. Let's see here. I don't always do this, but I'm going to give it a try for you guys. So let's say I made this like the width of the neck banding, 14 points. I made it a dashed line, and then I'm going to make it pretty small. Let's see here, 1 by 1. There you go. So that is a quick and easy way to add ribbing to anything, basically. So it really does save you time, and it's a little harder to control, like those little parts here, but you could mask that. Like there are things I could do to clean that up. A little bit too wide there. All right, that's pretty good. If you really wanted to be nitpicky, what you could do is just kind of have that go most of the way, and then you can just draw in a line. Oops. So let's say I'm going to draw in a line there. I'm going to make it a 1-point line. There we go. That just kind of fills that in. Cool. All right, so now last I'm going to delete that picture that I had in the background. So Object, Unlock All. That unlocks the t-shirt. So now I can just delete it. I can center this here. And there we go. There is my perfect construction sketch. Now let me tell you everything that I love about this sketch. When you look at it, you know exactly what this is. This is a t-shirt. It's pretty boxy in shape. It's got a short sleeve. It's got a short cap. It has a rib knit around the neckline and a self or some sort of it doesn't look like it's a textured fabric in the back neck tape. You usually don't have to show immense detail in these sorts of sketches, but I do like to be clear so that if someone is glancing at this, they have a quick idea of what this should be in their head, because there's a lot of different people that are involved in making clothes, right? So there's let's say you're working with a vendor who is overseeing a factory. So that vendor, they're working with you developing the style. So those people need to understand the style, right? But then when it goes into production, it needs to get cut in a cutting room. Sometimes cutting rooms aren't always owned by the factory, or maybe they are, but they're different people who work in the cutting room than work on the factory floor. So the cutting room people need to see a quick sketch, because what if someone made a mistake on the pattern and they accidentally labeled the neckline to be the self fabric, the body fabric, rather than rib? It's really easy to make that mistake. it's just one on the cutter's must to mess that up. Hopefully they wouldn't do that, but everybody makes mistakes. And if the cutter sees visually, oh, hey, actually this neckline should be rib, I'm seeing that it's rib, they might come back to the vendor and say like, hey, I see that this is rib, but the cutter's must says that it should be self, so what should it be? So this is going to be like your quick glance, get the idea of the garment kind of thing. It's really important that it be clear, simple, and that everything is really obvious. So I think this does a great job of that. It shows you what's going on. If I said, let's say this style was color blocked, meaning that there were purple sleeves and an orange body, I might actually put that on the sketch. Usually sketches are black and white, but maybe I would either make it true to color if it only comes in one colorway, or like gray tone. So maybe I make the body white and the sleeves gray, just to indicate to the cutting room that yes, the sleeves should be a different color, and that it should not all be one color. So just something really clear and simple. One reason to stay away from actually using correct colors, like using orange on the sleeves and purple on the body, is if the factory, vendor, cutting room, if they print it out in black and white, as they often will to save money, you're not going to get that color differential. So you need to think about this, how they're going to use it, and they're probably going to print it on a black and white printer. It's definitely going to be printed. They're probably not going to have screens where they are, or if they do, it'll be a quick glance. So you definitely want it to be visually clear in a black and white format, which is why I would say use gray tone scales, or you can have two versions. Maybe even ask your vendor how they inform each other, so that you can create something that's really clear for them. Asking questions is a really great way to get what you need, and if you don't ask questions, we'll never know. So I encourage you to ask questions, but yes, think about it that way. And this is my perfect t-shirt sketch. So maybe I will keep doing different garments just to talk you through how I would illustrate them. I figured I'd start with something super simple like this, and then maybe we can do some like pleated pants, or a pleated skirt, something that's a little more complicated, a jumpsuit. How would you illustrate that? Button-up shirt. Those things do take more time, I will say. Technical sketches take time. They definitely take time to do them right, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. And clear communication is always worth putting in the extra effort for. So take all the time you need. In my mind, I would say go for it. Make it look beautiful, clean, simple. All right, so I hope you enjoyed today's little lesson. If you have any feedback, questions, etc., please leave me a comment in the comment section below. If you have any specific styles you'd like me to talk about and address when we do technical sketches or pattern making, let me know as well. And if you'd like to support my channel, I have a Patreon, and I will link to that down below as well. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you in my next video, and happy sewing until then. Okay, bye.